Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Aquarius Rising Africa, yet again with a beautiful Rachel Vaughan of Australia. And I'm so
Hey, hello.
happy. Yeah, Rachel, I'm so happy to have you. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. A little cold here, but yeah, I'm going well. Good to see you again.
Very good to see you too. I think it's cold everywhere. Jeez, you can see I'm like looking a bit like the dark snow woman, yeah? You look like the light snow lady. I look like the dark snow woman.
Good in black. See?
Yeah,
You're
but
lucky I
anyway.
can't wear it at all.
Exactly. We contrast beautifully. So wow, Rachel, welcome. And I want to just say our last show was super fascinating on the ley lines, the cryptids, and the heterochromia as well. And I've had Doug on afterwards as well talking
Yeah.
about that. He's going to be joining our show again. Also went down really, really well with the heterochromia, epigenetics, stuff like that. Wow. So you guys from Australia are giving us the goods and we love it. But I mean, today's show we're going to be talking about something I've actually never heard about before until you told me was geocartography.
Mm, yeah.
What on earth is geocartography?
So it's a form of mapping. And the part that I've gotten really interested in recently is mapping the forced ley lines in cities. And if you know what to look for, and I'll be showing how to look for them, it's very simple. Once you know where the alignments are, um, what I'm hoping, I'm hoping number one, a lot of people will go out and then start mapping their cities and towns and find these forced alignments. I'm also hoping they'll go in there then and start singing and bringing that frequency to a high vibration. Because the reason they do these forced alignments is about control. And you'll see a lot of these arenas where they do a lot of loosh harvesting fall within these alignments, and I'll be showing that as well today. It's all incredibly complicated, and they've been planning and doing this for hundreds of years.
That makes such perfect sense to me, though. It's exactly, and from what I'm understanding, you're saying is they're actually forcing, I mean, the way we understand, the way I would understand ley lines and things usually, it's a natural energy grid
Yeah.
of the earth. Okay. So now we know that they would build them lodges, their slaughterhouses, churches, arenas, etc., on these energy points because that's where they can generally um, harvest the most loosh
Yeah.
from humans and animals and what have you. But now you're saying that they've actually taken these ley lines and they've corrupted them. They've
Yes.
manipulated them into a way or a direction or a shape or a form, whatever it is, that serves their nefarious purpose. Is that what you say?
Exactly.
Wow.
Exactly. And
Explain.
look, with the
Explain.
crossing points of ley lines, I mean the Romans were already doing sacrifices within those spaces. The Catholic Church this then came along and used the ritual stones that they were doing the sacrifices on and used those as the cornerstones of their churches.
Right.
And they would orient the church into a ley line. So a Freemason would come along with a sighting rod and they would sight the ley lines that the church would face into the ley line. And so that's your first clue. If you're looking for the ley lines in your urban environment, you look for a church first or a Masonic hole. So either will be a really good starting point. And you can start with, the biggest, most impressive church in a city is usually going to be your nexus point for all of the other ley lines that come out. And it's like a cartwheel. It comes out and they striate out, and the distances between them is a pattern. It forms a perfect pattern, and it's clearly organized and done by on purpose.
When you say it forms a pattern, explain that because I understand obviously the whole universe is sacred geometry, filled with
Mm.
shapes and patterns and beautiful God's natural creation, right? So when you say it, there's patterns between the ley lines. What do you mean by that? Is it a distance? Is it like an exact distance, or are they
Yeah,
shaped in a certain way?
there are exact distance and angles that you can see
Right,
replicated over and over
right.
and over again. Yeah.
And does it form like a
It, yes,
geometric
yes,
pattern?
absolutely. So
Wow.
rising sun patterns, and you'll see spokes of a wheel type patterns. And you can see this if you look at Paris, there's like an octopus shape in the center. Well, I can't remember exactly where it was. But if you look at Paris from in satellite vision from above, or even in maps, you'll see that it's like 8 arms coming into that particular city. And there's towns in Australia where they've got this, and where they have the central point of where all those roads, those arterial roads will come in. So quite often you'll see 8 roads coming into one specific point in a town. Mm.
Yes, all
They
over.
love the number 8. And in that center point, they'll often have a monument to fallen soldiers.
Yes.
Yes. And that is a Loosh harvesting device. And what I'm really concerned about now at this point, and I actually learned this after I did my presentation in Adelaide. I was directed by a lovely man who went to the presentation to look at this particular Geo-Cartographer, which is where I learned what all this is about, called Dirige Nos Domine. That's his channel. He hasn't uploaded for a while, unfortunately, but he shows a lot of this, and he postulated in one of his videos that these monuments to fallen soldiers are actually soul traps. And so it gets even darker. It's even darker. So you've got the name of each of those individuals. You've got them at the center point of these 8 roads. You see this over and over and over again. So they do this on purpose too. It's a form of capture. So then once I understood that, and it made a lot of sense, I then understood this prison planet concept that people have been talking about, in the last 4 or 5 years, that we're sort of stuck in a soul trap. We can't get out of the planet. I personally think that has been overridden, but I also believe that those, fallen soldiers, there has to be some sort of effort put in now, I believe, with psychopompers, who are the people who release souls. Not everybody knows what the term means, to go around to those locations and set some of these, well, all of these souls free. And I think, it's a very complicated process, but I believe the reason for keeping those souls in place is to stop the normal, it's like an infinity symbol with the earth in the center. Normally, souls that are dark will go off to hell after an incarnation. Souls that are light will go up to heaven, and it's this natural movement. But if you trap a whole heap of souls in one section, the dark souls don't have to move either. And this is where we get this puppeting and these attachments. They're not supposed to be here. We're not supposed to have all these attachments running around attacking people and jumping on them. So I think that's part of the process. They're holding souls here so that that movement doesn't occur. So it's multi-dimensional, and Freemasons know all about this stuff. It involves the Kabbalah. It involves a lot of different esoteric information. And again, these secret societies. This is why we have the cult of materialism, which is science, to denigrate anybody who speaks about these things. And I've been called names often. And I'm quite proud at the moment, quite frankly, to be called those names, because I know I'm getting under people's skin by talking about this stuff. It needs to be talked about. It's important.
I love this. And I'm going to actually share something with you, but I'm not going to do it on air. I'll talk to you about exactly what you're
Okay.
speaking about afterwards. I mean, it's quite profound what you're saying there about the soul traps, because what you're saying is exactly what I've seen.
Okay.
And it makes perfect sense. It's amazing how spirit brings us together to
Oh
have these
yeah.
conversations. I love it because, and there's one or two people that I've been speaking to about exactly this stuff, and it's so interesting that you coming forth, and we haven't even spoken about this information to each other, and you speaking about it, and I'm going, what? You've got to be joking. How is this even possible that we are doing, seeing, understanding things on opposite sides of, and I'm specifically saying this, although that's not what I want to talk about afterwards, it's more specific, but I'm just saying this for the viewers as well, because this is how the universe works.
Yeah.
When you are beautifully synced in and harmonized and aligned with God's will, right? Because God's will for you is your will for you, right? And that's what we must understand. So then we then just automatically and naturally sync towards each other, and we find these conversations and we find these commonalities and we find these missing pieces, and
Yeah.
so we together put the pieces of the puzzle. And I just think that is so incredible. And it's so true what you're saying, we're kind of getting deeper and deeper into information, right? Gathering or bringing up more information. It's like Beverly Rhodes. I was just chatting a little bit to Orphe about her. If you haven't watched my shows with Beverly Rose yet, I've done 2 interviews with her. I mean, bringing up the dirt on this country now. I mean, South Africa, that is, right? But stuff that many South Africans have been very scared to speak about publicly. She's had an indictment. And now the stuff, I mean, about Nelson Mandela, all of that stuff. It's just incredible, Rachel. And I mean, I didn't mean to digress. I'm just like seeing that there's so many different things. And I'm sure, when we're looking at these ley lines that they've manipulated, they must be becoming unhinged now as well, if
Oh,
that's
yeah.
the word, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So what's fascinating is, they have to do everything in plain sight, and they have to rely on us being too stupid to notice. We're not too stupid to notice. People are noticing all over the world. So like I mentioned, this channel, Dirige Nos Domine, it's brilliant on YouTube. There's another guy called Jeff Lewis 204. I recommend him. He's an Australian gentleman. There are geocartographers who are exposing this stuff all over the place. They're just 2 of the best channels that I've found recently. And it's just mind-blowing. It
What
is
is the name
absolutely
of the channel?
Dirige Nos Domine. I'll send you the link if you like.
I think we need a link for that one. I'm like,
Yeah,
okay, I'm usually quite good at spelling and,
yes.
and picking up words, but that I'm gonna have to find a word, yeah, a link for that. Okay, we will definitely pop that in the link as well, because this is absolutely fascinating. But yeah, tell us more. And I know you've recently done a presentation in Australia
Yeah.
on this.
So the presentation I'm going to give today is just going to be a short version of what I gave in Adelaide. And I have also uploaded that to my Rumble and BitChute channels, so people can go to those, and I'll give you the link to that as well. That'll be the full version. I just want to keep this reasonably quick today, so it's not doesn't go on for too long. Because I know you usually like to keep your videos around about an hour, which I think is really good. People look at an hour and a half and they just like, I'll just never get through it. So, an hour's a really smart packet of information. Yeah, so I'm hoping that people will look at this and think, I can do that. This is really simple. Just look at Google Maps. And it really is. They have to, it's revelation of the method. They have to show us what they're doing, and we have to stay stupid and asleep. And this is what MK Ultra and the news and all of the propaganda is all about, keeping us asleep. We're not asleep anymore. We are not. We're all waking up. And literally symbolism will be their downfall. And this is why I named the presentation, because it's so effing obvious. You can't miss this stuff if you know what you're looking for. So shall I start to share?
Absolutely, please do. Have you got this sharing
I
there,
have.
right?
I have.
Perfect.
All right. All right. So we'll go to slideshow. So hopefully you can see that. Okay. So
Lovely.
this is Adelaide. This is just the beginning of the presentation. So you'll notice here there's a reptilian eye. Wait till I show you that a little bit more clearly. And these are the forced alignments that I've described, and I'll show how they do it with the buildings that they do, how they work it out. So if you want to find these sorts of alignments in your local area, it's as simple as finding the most magnificent church. Could be a Masonic hall as well. But generally it tends to be the oldest and most magnificent church in the location. Obviously, I'm talking about Western countries. The one that I decided would be the nexus point, or worked out was the nexus point, is St. Peter's. There's another really elaborate church called St. Francis Xavier Church, but St. Peter's was begun and finished in 1904, begun in the mid 19th century and finished at 1904. And St. Francis wasn't completed until about, 1996. So, and it made perfect sense once I did the alignments that it all goes back to St. Peter's Church. I have been told by an individual that there is a stone in St. Peter's that nobody's allowed to touch. And I believe that must be a ritual stone of some sort that they've brought in, but it's well worn, way more worn than it should be for the age of this country's being colonised, and quite a dark sort of feeling. So you mentioned before abattoirs. That's one of the things that you'll find on a forced alignment. Churches, obviously, hospitals, anything that's named after a Freemason will usually be on these alignments. Your abattoirs, your statues, your monuments, your shrines to the fallen, those sorts of things you'll find on these forced alignments. Schools, childcare centres, Masonic halls, obviously, arenas, you'll find a lot of arenas. Statues, those sorts of things. So that's pretty much the basic template. It couldn't get simpler. So to start off with, Colonel William Light was our first Surveyor General of Adelaide, and he was the Master Mason, so very, very high level Freemason. So that's the highest symbolic degree. Apparently that's the 33rd degree as well. What's really interesting about William Light, I was speaking to my friend Dale Holmes about this, and he said, "Oh, William, that's the will I am, like the will of God." And it was like, "Are you serious?" That just made perfect sense. I already had worked out that his name meant light bearer, or he was a representation of Lucifer for the Adelaide set. But once Dale pointed out the will I am, or the will of God, the will of the I am, the will of God, it made perfect sense. So again, you know, we're talking about secret societies that are absolutely obsessed with the esoteric, and names are extremely important to Freemasons, more important than pretty much anything else. And this also goes back to these Illuminati bloodlines that they're all obsessed with as well. They all think they're better than everybody else because of them. So what was amazing was one of the individuals who actually attended the Adelaide event, which was in March. So was it March? No, it was in May. Was it March? Oh God, it's been too long. Anyway, at the Adelaide event, it's a while ago. So sorry, it was in May, 24th and 25th of May. Oh God, my life is just too hard.
I was going to say it was
Search.
May. I remember seeing
It
it
was
advertised for
May. Too
May.
much work. So one of the lovely individuals who came along, I'd already done the presentation that day. He came up to me and he said, "I took this photograph of the epitaph of Colonel William Light's monument, which is in Light Square, and it actually says," and this is a quote from William Light, "The reasons that led me to fix Adelaide where it is, I do not expect to be generally understood or calmly judged of at the present. I leave it to posterity to decide whether I am entitled to praise or to blame." Now, people might think that's because, but you know, there was talk about putting it in Victor Harbour, which is a more southern than Adelaide, and that maybe it was about the fact that they chose this particular location. They chose this location because of the ley lines in this particular location, and I just found that amazing because it's now coming to light. It's being exposed exactly what has been done, and I believe he is to blame, not to praise. That's for sure. So some of the symbolism that I'm going to be showing in this presentation very briefly, the gods behind Freemasonry, obviously a Baphomet, Baal, Hermes, obviously some pretty dark stuff. The Kabbalah is represented, so that's the tree of life in Kabbalah. In the symbolism in Adelaide, the word king comes up over and over and over again, and you'll see Kingston, Kingston, Kingston all over Adelaide. And this is meaning the place of kings, or the place of the Illuminati, the place of the pharaohs, because my father, who was a high-level Mason and an ASIO operative, which is a secret service in Australia, believed himself to be a pharaoh. I'm not joking, that's literally what he believed. You'll see the Eye of Ra symbolism everywhere. The Satanic Temple obviously has a chapter in Australia and in Adelaide. Now, they've actually taken the part where it describes that they're in Adelaide off their Satanic Temple website recently. Whether it's back up again, I don't know. I keep pointing it out. It's gone now, but I took a screen grab. You'll see this satanic sigil, or the Lucifer sigil, with the eye represented in the landscape in Adelaide all over the place, as well as this Chi-Rho symbol, which is a very ancient symbol for Christ on the cross. Rosy cross symbolism, this sort of window shape you'll see in the landscape, actually in the streetscape. It's hard to miss in certain areas. And these are just some of the symbols that you'll see that are Freemasonic symbols, your checkerboard, and some others there. So what you can't see here, and I'll just, if I can, no, there's the sigil of Lucifer there, but you'll see it again in a moment. So this is Colonel Light Gardens in Adelaide, and the streetscape literally is made up like one of these windows. So again, his name meant light, or the will of light, or light bearer, Lucifer. I mean, it's not too hard to make that extrapolation. The window representation for light's very appropriate. Obviously, it lets the light in. You'll see this rising sun formation in almost every Freemasonic building. They'll have these sorts of windows because it's a form of sun worship. Within the Colonel Light Gardens, with this interesting window aperture, you'll see these sacred geometry symbols. I've marked them here in close up. Light Place Reserve actually points to another kind of church, the Christadelphian church. You've got the perfect square, you've got the octagon. So, you know, a lot of this happens. You've also got interesting names. So Kingston comes up here, another reference to place of kings, Kingston, Kingstown, place of kings. We also have Winston Avenue here. There's a known walkable tunnel, 6 feet deep and about 2 meters wide all along Winston Avenue. That goes all the way to Clarence Gardens, where there's even more tunnelling, and that's quite close to where I exposed all of the tunnels in the Edwardstown Glandore area where I grew up when I was trafficked. There's also a reference to Penong Avenue. Where is it? Penong is here, or Penang Avenue. Now there's a Penong Avenue in Camden Park, and that's the opening at the back of it. So it's behind the Lions Club op shop, Lions Club, Rotary, Country Women's Association. These are all part of the Freemasonic structure. So the Lions Park has access to a tunnel that's a skip. These are houses. That's how big the tunnel is. You could drive a car through it, probably drive two next to each other through that tunnel. I've just got a little sort of factor down here. We have play school in Australia, which is an indoctrination for little children. It's been going since I was a child. One of their windows that you're supposed to pick a window each day to go through, look through the window. They've got the Masonic window represented there with the crown, which is also interesting. You'll see the crown symbolism in these places as well. So this is where this is St. Peter's Cathedral. Like I said, the central point where all of these spokes of the wheel come from. I still haven't done all of the other parts that striate off into the other areas of Adelaide. That's to come. We have Adelaide Oval here. There was an abduction from this location in the 70s. 2 little girls went missing. They're searching for their body at the moment, or their remains at the moment. The Chief of Police has come out and said that they're not to do that. They're not allowed to do that because they're giving false hope to the family. They've done another dig recently for the Beaumont children, and there was no talk of them giving false hope to that family. But when they dig around for the Oval abduction, Chief of Police comes out and says, don't do that. You'll give people false hope, which is very interesting. So
do you think I mean, if the girls were abducted in that arena, that they would be buried there, or
So I'm not 100% sure where they are. I know that there's been talk that there was connection to my father in that case. I was only born that year when they
right?
disappeared, so I don't know much about it. But what is really interesting, if you look here, you can actually see, so this is where the ley lines come out, and I've mapped them, and I'll be showing where what other buildings they relate to in a moment. This is Colonel William Light's statue on Montfiore Hill, and it's here. So I popped it here. That's one vision of it. It's actually from above. That's where it sits. And it has these striations out. Now, 3 of
Right.
them, when they cross over these ley lines that are forced, they create the top half of the sigil of Lucifer. Again, he was
It's
a
true.
representation
Look at that.
of Lucifer.
Wow.
He was the will of God, the will I am of light. So light bearer. So, you know, unless you know where the ley lines are, you wouldn't ever pick this up. And they just happened to cross right over the Adelaide Oval. Now, both Jeff Lewis and the author of the Dirige Nos Domine YouTube channel that I mentioned before, they indicate in their videos that they believe that a lot of these ritual murders occur within these locations for a reason. So that the
Right.
ritual
Okay.
murders that you'll see that I just talked about as murders in the news, in the media, it's a ritualistic aspect to them because they almost always are in these powerful crossing points of ley lines. And it gets weird as I go on. So if you look at the streetscape of Adelaide from above, the main roads create a perfect square. And within that perfect square, the Adelaide Central Business District also produces a perfect square. And in the centre of that perfect square is this small section. So it's right in the centre. And right in the centre of that is what's called Victoria Square. Now, if you look here, this is what Victoria Square looks like from above. And it looks like a reptilian eye. I am not joking. Now, how
Look
is this
at
possible?
that.
It's the eye at the top of the capstone, Shanti. So this is what I mean about the symbolism being so painfully obvious. They're not trying to hide it, but we're too stupid to notice, supposedly. So at the center,
This is
so
wild.
it is wild.
Wild, man.
When I was presenting this, I was worried about the audience, being so freaked out because a lot of people came from we had an overseas visitor and we had a lot of people from interstate. And I remember thinking, they probably just want to jump on the plane and leave immediately. And they probably won't come for the fun part, the beautiful ley line walk that we did in nature the next day. But a good 80 odd people came along for the ley line walk.
Wow.
This,
Amazing.
at the tear duct point of this eye is the Three Rivers Fountain. Now it's in a hexagon. 3 rivers, 3 times 6. 3666. Now that Three Rivers Fountain's replicated in other places. There's one in Sydney, which is another city in Australia. So where you find your Three Rivers Fountain in different countries, I would say you're going to find some really significant symbolism in the landscape. Again, we have a statue right within this formation. Charles Cameron, Kingston. Again, Kingstown. This is ours. We own this. Above the court building here, that's right on the corner, is a rosy cross, actually on the roof. So they've made it into a rosy cross. So again,
That's insane. Look at that. I mean, that is
and
so
just to rub
obvious,
it in,
though.
they have a festival called the Fringe Festival every year, and they actually have what they call Fool's Paradise taking place within Victoria Square within that eye. Because they're
Fool's
laughing at us.
paradise.
They think this is hilarious.
Totally.
So
My God.
we have all of these squares in Adelaide. So we have some really obvious symbolism in the squares, which I'll point out. Now, there are 4 cardinal virtues in Freemasonry: temperance, fortitude, prudence, and justice. And each of these, so there's 5 squares, but 4 of them relate to these 4 cardinal virtues of Freemasonry. Remembering, of course, that our first Surveyor General was a top level Freemason, Colonel William Light. So Light Square would be a really good representation of fortitude. Fortitude is about courage in pain or adversity. So coping within, with courage in pain and adversity. Now, that symbol that's in the way that they've got a monument there, they've got all these little walkways, it looks exactly like a chi rho symbol, and that is the symbol for Christ on the cross. So that's a very good representation of fortitude, of someone having courage in pain and adversity. And obviously I'm very against the representation of Jesus Christ on the cross, because that was a moment in his time where he was at his most vulnerable, and it's a symbol of don't you dare speak out against the government or the usurers, because you'll get
That's
sacrificed.
so true.
I hate it. It
I
annoys the
mean,
hell out of me.
that it is so true. And you know what? It's like and especially, I mean, especially, it is so true what you've said. Would you want that moment to be recorded, if that were you, in history for all of eternity. That moment of, and the Catholic Church especially loves that because it's the symbol of suffering,
Yeah.
humility, not even humility, humiliation,
Yes.
shame,
Yeah. Yeah.
betrayal, deception.
Yeah.
I mean, the only reason Jesus was on the cross was because A, he spoke truth,
Yeah.
okay, and he was betrayed. He was completely, the masses, I mean, talk about mass hysteria, right? Which
Yeah.
we've never evolved from even then. I mean, if you think about the mass hysteria that we go through today, we would have sworn that human beings have evolved somewhat. We haven't, right? It's so true what you're saying, Rachel. That symbol of
Mhm.
suffering, betrayal, deception, humiliation, pain. That's the end of
Yeah.
it.
And it's
Wow.
infuriating because he was a magician, he was a prophet, he was all these amazing
An
things, you know.
alchemist. He was an
He was a
alchemist. An
healer,
alchemist.
exactly. Incredible,
Total.
incredible, an incredible example of what we can achieve if we do our work and try the best
Exactly.
to be the best person that we can be. So that's light
Exactly.
square. This is Hindmarsh Square. In my opinion, Square represents prudence because it's about caution. And it actually has a king K symbol within the streetscape, within the paths. I mean, there's no, can you see that it makes no sense that there's a K in
Wow.
that they're called
Exactly.
paths. Doesn't it just makes no sense. And so it's a king K because it's got this little striation. It's a capital K. Now that king K has been used in various areas of Adelaide, in particular on a particular building where I saw some terrible things occur. And my father would talk about this word down here that I won't mention, and that three-pointed crown in relation to the word king, and that king K represents that particular, predation on one's own. If you look at Burger King, they have a ghost burger. So and they use the eye symbolism with the three-pointed crown. Now, I wouldn't be touching anything from Burger King after looking, knowing what I know about the symbolism. So that's another representation of this sort of symbolism that you see all over Adelaide. And just in case you might have missed it, this is Hindmarsh Square. Right over here is Crown Plaza. So the crown and the K are intertwined in this
Wow.
shape. So there's your Crown Plaza. I'm not saying anything against Crown Plaza, but it couldn't be more obvious. And right next to it, though, you can't see it, is the word hide, Hyde, hide, hidden. So that's another street that's just local to Hindmarsh Square. Whitmore Square. Oh, and by the way, all of these squares were named after high-level masons. So Whitmore Square, I don't have a lot on what it might mean in the four cardinal virtues, but it was named after a very high level mason, and they actually have the checkerboard as in a chess set within the square. So that black and white checkerboard that I showed before, which was part of the symbolic Masonic symbolism, is in the square, or at least it was at some point. There's also apparently there were air raid trenches built there, so that it might still have tunnels in that location. This is so Hurtle Square. So it's interesting. We have a Hurtle in the family. Or is it Whitmore? No, sorry. So I think this is Whitmore Square. No, Hurtle Square. Okay, so Hurtle. So again, we've got. I don't think I had one for. Oh, sorry. Now, where were we? Oh, where have I gone? No, going in the wrong direction.
Oh, good. No worries. Wow, no. I mean, I'm just
Now,
fascinated. It's absolutely
I forgot to mention
fascinating.
with Whitmore Square, it does actually relate to one of the cardinal virtues from Freemasonry, abstinence. This is the only dry zone in Adelaide within these squares. So this particular square, dry zone, and has been for quite a long time. So that relates to temperance, which means abstinence from alcohol, one of the four virtues. So this is Hurtle. All right, so Hurdle Square, again, he was a founding member of the Adelaide Club. The Adelaide Club is a big part of the reason why we have problems in this state. It's your uber elites. They all get together and plan things for Adelaide, and I've heard some horrific stories. So it's interesting that Hurdle Square has what looks like the chalice, and it also has the cross. So the way that the streets come across makes a perfect cross, very much like the symbol here.
Look at that.
And finally, you have all the eye symbolism. So Victoria Square, which is this eye again, looks out on all these court buildings. So that to me would be the justice version of the four cardinal virtues. So again, we've got 5 squares and 4 of them relate to these cardinal virtues of Freemasonry. Now, the eye symbolism in Adelaide, this is just a small example of some of them. Unbelievable. This is an arena in an eye shape right next to what's called Kingston Park. This is the conservatory. This is on a forced alignment as well. This is on a forced alignment. When you line up all the arenas in Adelaide, it comes to what looks like a square and compass. And obviously, again, you've got the CBD in the centre here, which is that capstone. Sorry, I've got further down here. So you often see that in relation to that symbolism. Over here, you can't see it very well, but you'll see it in a moment, is a building in it's an imaging building, so it's a medical building that's also eye-shaped, and it's sitting just above another sigil. So, and we'll go into that again in a moment. So again, I wanted to keep this reasonably quick. So when we start at St. Peter's Cathedral, which is at the top here, and we splay out to the significant churches in the Adelaide CBD, taking into account again, this square here represents the capstone of the pyramid that I showed earlier, with Victoria Square as the eye. That's an image of St. Peter's Cathedral. This first line goes through to Kingston Park, where that arena is. So that was the first alignment, and that's the hospital that I just showed, has an eye-shaped building and a Luciferian sigil in the paths, which make no sense. This alignment goes through to St. Patrick's Church. This one goes through to Parliament House and the District Court. This one goes through to the Adelaide Club, which is up here, and all the way through to St. Francis Church. This one goes straight through to, and even more interesting, there's another church in the middle here. And that's St. John's Church. It goes through St. John's Church and just gets more interesting. And this one goes through all the way to a place called Beaumont and all the way out to the Mount Osmond lookout. So it covers, these alignments go for long distances. Right.
I mean, Rachel, this is unbelievable. I really am. I'm blown away. Not really. I mean, obviously I know, but I'm amazed at how you figured this out. When you take a map and you look at it, who the hell would think? But obviously, understanding what you do and knowing what you do, you've absolutely mapped this out so perfectly.
And look,
so perfectly.
You've got your Parliament House, you've got the Adelaide Club that I mentioned before, you've got the Freemason Grand Lodge. These are really significant buildings all on these alignments. And Parliament House, for example, is made of marble and bluestone. They're both incredibly high piezoelectric stone. Every single church, every single building that is on these alignments that's significant is made of these piezoelectric stones. So piezoelectric means it holds a frequency. It holds, it's energetic. These are not inert. They have a frequency, just like a crystal has a frequency. So the stones that they use intentionally will force the alignments to follow in these straight lines. And yeah, like I said before, these angles are pretty exact. So, it's not by coincidence that they place these buildings in these particular locations. These are just a little bit further out so you can see the distance. This is close up. These show you where these alignments go. This particular alignment goes through the Adelaide Oval that I mentioned before. We've got Colonel Williams Light Colonel William Light's statues overlooking that, creating that sigil, goes all the way through this eye, which is another arena. There's multiple arenas along this alignment. So that's the arena alignment. This one goes all the way through so many significant places, St. Patrick's Church. This one again goes through, I believe, Parliament House. There's Victoria Square. So, I mean, these are extremely significant. I actually felt quite sick when I was doing this investigation. It wasn't, I wouldn't say I was enjoying it. And every time I do a presentation like this or research like this, you know, it's so triggering for me because it brings up so much of what I went through as a child and what my father would snigger and tell me about. He used me as a recorder, as my dear friend Annika described. He used my sister in the same way. He would just tell us a lot. And so he wanted us to remember these things. So part of this is memory, and part of this is finding this stuff and thinking, oh my God, could it be any more obvious? So this is the new Royal Adelaide Hospital. It got moved, and this is what they created in the paths and the roads in this particular, on this property. It looks exactly like a sigil with the eye above. I mean, can't make this stuff up. So people can say I'm crazy, but there it is. It's right there. And again, this is on this really powerful alignment from St. Peter's Cathedral all the way through these, and so many. There's an arena there. There's an arena there. There's an oval there. Another one here. Kingston Park, again, Kingston. This comes up over and over and over again. And that's something I would also recommend to people. When you are looking at an area, and if it looks really unusual to you and it looks like you're seeing some of this symbolism, look for the street names. If you get royal names, again, Royal Adelaide Hospital, Royal. If you get the word Hyde, Hyde, if you get, anything, Windsor, any of those sorts of names that relate to, like Gurney Street's really significant because a gurney is what you put a body on, living or dead. There's so much of this going on.
We have sorry, I just wanted to say in Johannesburg, there's a whole area called Hyde Park. And then you get the Hyde Park shopping centre. And it's a very upper class. It's where people with boodle live.
We had a police commissioner with the surname Hyde.
Wow.
My father used to snigger about Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. You know, even to the point where we've got symbolism, in the grounds here that looks like a nuclear symbol. And this is actually the children's playground right next to this eye-shaped monolith, this building that's shaped like an eye. This is one of the buildings along this alignment as well. This is just one of the rising sun symbol you'll see everywhere. So here it is. So this is Adelaide High School. Now it's shaped, it looks like an eye again, with the way that they've done the road. And then they've got the buildings in this striation. It's not necessary. Why would you build like that? It's bizarre. Now, there's also an oval above it, which is really quite symbolic of, this is Horus, the eye of Horus, has the sun above him. So the symbolism there is that rising sun motif again. You've got the eye. So the Horus and the Ra symbolism throughout Adelaide is crazy. It's just everywhere. And again, I go into more detail in the presentation, but I just don't want to, go into too much of it. So there is also the symbol of a large bird. This is Adelaide Airport. My father used to snigger about thunderbirds when planes used to fly over. When I found this shape of what could be a condor or perhaps Horus, the head of Horus, with John Mitchell Reserve as the eye in the landscape above Adelaide Airport, that blew my mind as well. So Horus in Egyptian mythology is primarily the god of the sky, sun, and kingship. Again, that king name, it comes up over and over again. So within the wing, you've got the Adelaide CBD. So again, the symbolism overlaps. There are also these 4 squares within the wing. So I've presented them here, are representations of those 4 cardinal virtues, the 4 squares of Freemasonry that I mentioned earlier. And they form part of the pyramid in the Adelaide CBD. Some more symbolism, eye symbolism right next to the airport, and the rising sun motif in the corner of the airport as well. So, you know, it's just unmistakable. Now, this was what, when I got to this point, I actually wanted to throw up. So one of the alignments goes straight through my childhood home. So my father would have known, and this is where, when I watched some of the videos from Dirige Nos Domine, who's on YouTube, and Jeff Lewis, and realized that they do these sacrifices in these locations for a reason. A lot of children got sacrificed and processed through my childhood home, both above ground and below ground. So, you know, there was processing that happened in the bathroom. That was our family bathroom as well. And as I've said many times, just up above where I grew up is a place called the Glandore Boys Home, where 106 boys went missing, never to be found again. So my father would have known this. He would have known this alignment, and this apostolic church is on the alignment too, which clarifies that it does go all the way through. So that's where it goes all the way through, my childhood home being here. So as you can imagine, I felt pretty bloody sick about that. Okay.
Wow, that is sickening. I can well imagine. It's like so well orchestrated, isn't it? It's like you were, I mean, did your dad deliberately buy the house?
I believe so. It
Yes,
had
so
a
he would
bunker,
have bought.
or it had an old brick kiln underneath, so he would have known, because he was a telecommunications worker, and the telecommunications worker had access to all the old telecommunications bunkers maps. So he knew where all the maps were, he knew where all the tunnels were. It's very important to note that my father's first wife, after he had met my mother, he was 16 years older than my mother. He met her, did not tell her he was married, and did not tell her he had 3 children. He got her pregnant, and just after she had my older brother, her first child, to my father, he had his first wife murdered because he wanted to move my mother in, and he could not risk losing the house to pay out his ex-wife, or his wife that he wanted to get rid of. So he had her murdered. He told the local neighbours that my 13-year-old sister Claire was the mother of this new baby that my mother had provided. Moved my mother in. Pretty obvious it was her child, but he told the neighbours that it was his 13-year-old daughter's child. So that was the
How
sort of
did he
person.
how did he murder his first wife? Was it just like a hit,
So
or
she was in a facility. She'd gone into a facility for protection, so a mental health facility. And somehow while she was in that protection, she was found with her
they
ring
got to?
missing, ring missing, her watch missing. My father carried on about the missing ring and watch. They'd been stolen. Well, he had them later on and gave them to his 2 daughters. So it's very likely he did it himself. So that was actually in reports that he made, because this is the thing, he was very duplicitous. So, and he had alter parts. So one part of him was complaining about his wife being murdered. The other part had the ring and the watch. Yeah, just incredible.
Was he even
And you know,
was he even aware that he had so many different personalities? I mean, did he even know?
honestly, I don't think so. And
I
this
mean,
is
at
where, you know,
least.
his grandfather, who died when he was 11, was supposedly head of the Freemasons. I don't know if it was just in South Australia or Australia. He was a very high level Mason. So, you know, God knows what happened to my father. And I'm not excusing what he did, and I never can. But this is why I was able, when you and I had that session, I was able to actually forgive him. Not him, not what he did, but his soul,
Yes.
because the soul of him was fractured. It was fractured.
I think,
Yeah.
talking about forgiveness, which is, and Kathy O'Brien and I were just talking about it the other day, and I don't want to digress too much, but I think it is important, is that when we understand, that he too was an abused child, it enables not forgiveness of his actions, but for you to make the peace, and then forgiveness becomes the next step after that. But anyway, sorry, I do digress. It's
No, it
difficult
is
when
an
you
important thing. It's important,
very
it's not about forgiving the actions. It's about forgiving and releasing the hatred and
yes,
the
for
the
you.
The vitriol, yeah, for you, exactly.
Exactly.
It's important to
It'll
note that
never
this
make it
particular
okay.
no, no. This particular alignment also, goes along King William Street, King again, and it goes all the way down and borders Colonel Light Gardens, which again, obviously Colonel Light created, the streetscape, and he made sure that this alignment would border Colonel Light Gardens. So again, we've got alignment 4. It goes through the Adelaide Cub, St Francis Xavier Cathedral. This particular alignment's particularly interesting. So this one goes through the massive Masonic Grand Hall all the way to St John's Church. This one goes through all the way to Mount Osmond and reverberates back. And it's worth noting that the Attorney General's office is located equidistant between the two alignments. So where the alignment number 6 heads all the way to the Mount Osmond Lookout, it bounces back, and right directly in between, not a degree off, directly in between those two alignments is the Attorney General's office. Vicky Chapman was the former Attorney General. Kaya Ma is the current Attorney General. That alignment goes all the way through, again, this eye symbolism with this Centennial Conservatory. There's also an A symbol in the conservatory. I'm still not 100% sure what that means, but it's one of these king symbols, particular kind of cursive that obviously has a lot of significance. And there's another triangle sort of pointing at the eye, like we keep seeing over and over again. What is absolutely fascinating, there is it's like a turnstile. This alignment aligns perfectly with this little part of the streetscape in Toorak Gardens. It's a perfect cross, and it lines perfectly. It goes through in Burnside. You couldn't make it up. It's perfect. Again, it's got all these other significant things in the middle. That's the Mount Osmond Lookout, where it bounces back from. And again, right in between, that's where our Attorney General is. So it's a really, really powerful individual in our state. So this is where basically the presentation ends. Again, I've gone into a lot more detail in the presentation that I've given on my Rumble and BitChute channels, which are both just under my name, Rachel Vaughan, if you search me up. Behind the Grand Masonic Hall, so that's where it is, on North Terrace, on one of these very powerful alignments, they're trying to build the Keystone Tower. It will be the biggest skyscraper that they've ever built in Adelaide. The Keystone in Freemasonry is the final piece. It doesn't go in until the very end, and it is what holds the entire structure together. They are building this apparently up until 2027. I'm going to be doing my very best to make it very uncomfortable for them to build it. It's supposed to be enormous. It's the biggest skyscraper Adelaide has. Interestingly, behind this building, the Grand Lodge, is Tavistock Lane. So they don't even try and hide it. They've put it into the streetscape. They've called it Tavistock Lane, and there's also Synagogue Place. And I thought this was hilarious. Vaughan is my married name, but Vaughan Place also appears there. And in my sense of humor, I like to think that maybe, my choice of husband, though it's an ex now, my choice of name is significant in this whole picture. Okay. So that's the presentation. Again, I'm really hoping as many people as possible will see this presentation and think, I can do that. That's really easy. I'll do that too, and I'll do that in my location. And then they might share it, and then that might encourage other people to do the same thing, because again, they have to do it in plain sight. Oh, you're muted.
There we go. I was sitting thinking, we should all actually be doing that.
Yeah.
I think that should definitely be, but I think that you should actually do a course for us on that, actually.
Oh, that's so funny. I was going to announce that today, and I didn't even tell you. You're so good. So this is my first teaching video on this, and I will be teaching a course. Yeah. Thanks,
Okay,
Shanti.
well, we will. Well, if ever that was confirmation, well, a sign, there you go. Guys, I mean, this is incredible. Rachel, I mean, what you've uncovering here is phenomenal. Really, 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 it is phenomenal that
And
you're
it's
able
not
to,
hard.
my head. Yeah, I mean, it is just unbelievable when you, if you just look at the street maps. I mean, in the old days, we only traveled around with street maps. I mean, remember those? If you think about now, it was a horror story. Now, I mean, Google Maps or Waze is my best friend, but of course that's exactly how they track you. Once a month, I get a notification from Google telling me exactly where I've been. So I try to switch off my location as much as what I can, but
Yeah.
I mean, it's insane. I mean, but just to take that old map of your city, town, whatever, and to be able to point out, find out, I'm on that course of yours, babe. I'll take a spot. Yep,
Excellent. Excellent. Yeah. It's not hard.
definitely. I'll definitely take a spot with that. And I think all of us
Yeah.
should actually do this course that we can actually start decoding what's happening in our towns. You know, whether people believe us or not is irrelevant. It's
Exactly.
always going to be us forerunners in this type of exposure are always going to take the mud on the face, really. But at the end of the day, they're the ones that sit with egg on their faces, because what we're seeing here is beyond reproach. It is so clear. But who thinks to look at that unless you know exactly what you're looking for? And it's like, I'm so grateful because Jesse does all the decoding of the buildings and the stuff.
Yeah.
And I mean, you know, the different temples and the lodges and the churches, when the arches and Epstein Island, we did that, she did that decode on Epstein Island not too long ago, which was actually quite incredible. When you see like the pillars and the shape of the pillars and the murals on the, everything means something and they use it
Yes.
for something. So now
Oh,
when we
absolutely.
have that, as well as the ley line decodes, to understand how they've actually forced the ley lines and what we can do to reverse that. Because really it is entirely up to us whether we can reverse that or not, right? It's us.
Yes,
It's
it
up
is.
to us to do it. We're the only ones
Exactly.
who
And
can.
the biggest key to that is just knowing it's there. That is the biggest key. It takes all the secrets away from them. They don't have any control anymore.
Exactly.
We've just completely ruined what they've done.
And it's so true because you take away that, you're bringing it to the light. It's really what exposure is about, isn't it? You're bringing it to the light and you're saying, well, this is what they're doing. And now what? So now what are you gonna come suicide me? Well, you can try,
Yeah.
but it's out there already. So maybe you should switch sides rather than try and be a dodgy creature of the night. Come into the light. We invite you into the light. Rather come show us
Yeah, yeah.
what we need to
Yeah, yeah.
see. Come show us.
Exactly.
Come
Yeah,
show
yeah.
us what's in there.
People can
Come
do it
show
in a clever
us.
way. They can
Yes,
have a YouTube channel and call it something obscure if they're a Freemason and share the information and do it cleverly.
exactly. Exactly. Or you can come talk on our show. Rachel and I will happily talk to you. Spill the tea. Speaking of which, hydration station time. After that, my
Yeah, yeah.
word. Rachel, that is absolutely fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. And really, this information, not only does it, it's like, it's, when I say it blows me away, it really does. It's more the fact that it's coming to the light. You know, we've
Yeah.
always known this stuff is going on, actually. I look at my little town in the middle of nowhere that I grew up in, the Masonic Hotel, Masonic Lodge, you know? There you have it. And for some reason, my father refused to go to that hotel. There was two hotels in town, and you know, like he'd come fetch us from school and what have you, and then we'd go to the lounge and have a cold drink or a lunch or something in the small, you know, that small town,
Yeah.
whatever. and he refused. I have been to the Masonic Hotel once in my life when there was a wedding there.
Oh, wow.
Once in my life as a child. My father refused to go there, and it's so interesting. Wow.
Wow. Wow.
And
You
it's
mentioned that
interesting
he
as
was very tall.
yes, yes. Oh, no, he was 6'6". His brothers were 6'7" and 6'5", 6'6", 6'7". His
They would
father
have
was
been
6'8".
desperate to recruit him.
Yep.
They're obsessed with giantism. So that would have been, they
But
would have tried to.
what's interesting though, and I'm going to tell you all something which I haven't said before. I took my father's family crest. Well, all I'm going to say is it links to the Priory of Sion and
Oh,
the the lions. Yes. Okay.
oh my gosh.
Now, what's very interesting is that, but that's before the surname changed, because originally the Meibergs were spelled Mijberg and Meiburg. So what happened was then somehow as time came along, those merged and it became Myburgh. So that is a crest from before the surname changed. And then my great great grandfather, he broke away from them and
Wow.
he changed our surname to Myburgh with a Meyburgh at the end. So all of us Myburghs are related. But my family, like my grandfather, my father's father, are the only English ones because he married a British woman. So we are the only English Myburghs. Us, my father, my grandfather. So there's 5 of them. So it's only those 5 siblings and their kids that now there might be more because the other cousins might have married English, but they were all staunch Afrikaans. But it's very interesting because it makes me wonder. And I said to my brother the other day, I said, we've got to check out this bloodline. And it's true, but I think what happened was my great-great-grandfather broke away from that lineage. But
Right.
remember, it's also ancient. It goes right back to Holland from Yegon yonder years. So, but when we came to South Africa, when the Myburghs came to South Africa, I think that's when it broke away. But it definitely, I've always known something about my father's lineage. He definitely wasn't involved in anything, and but definitely if I look further up,
Isn't
for
it
sure.
fascinating? So
Yeah.
you've come in
And
also to do that line.
definitely, I would definitely say the male side, my brother and my son, because my son is a Myburgh, but he's a Myburgh because I kept his name a Myburgh, right?
Yeah.
So if I'd given him his daddy's surname, he would not be a Myburgh, but he's a Myburgh, and I can for sure say that he's clearing his father's lineage and that lineage as well as my one brother as
Yeah.
well. I can see it so clear. I can see it so clearly.
So
And
many
then,
of
of course,
us were doing it.
yes, and on my mother's side, that's where the von Bülows, now that's German aristocracy. That's where I get my RH negative blood and my
Oh,
spiritual gifts. But
wow.
I would definitely say it comes from my British grandmother as well, because I mean, that's again bloodlines to the kings. I don't even want to talk about that crowd. So I've definitely got that in my blood. All of this
Yeah.
aristocratic blood in my lineage is strong, for sure.
Well, it makes so much sense that you're doing this work and exposing all of this.
Yeah,
That's what you need to do.
absolutely.
I
Absolutely.
love it. Beautiful
Absolutely.
stuff. Yeah.
But it's fun. It's fun, you know. I mean, well, fun, but it's fun. I
Yeah.
love to come here and actually do what we're doing, Rachel. For me, it's really good. It's really good that we can share this stuff and that we have you who can talk about these, because the ley lines are so important, right? They are
Yeah.
so important, the forced ones. And it's amazing what you're saying. And I know I'm going to wrap up soon. And it's amazing what we're saying because it's like, I always thought they built according to the ley lines. But what
That's
you're
all.
saying now, they have forced them. And would that also mean, though, that if there's a ley line that's naturally there, they would still go and build something on it?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So they'll
Yeah.
find where the most significant layers are. And this is why knowing that they're visible, you can see them, is so important. And again, every time you've got a church, a Freemason goes along with a sighting rod to sight the ley line. So they know it. They know they can see it. They just use a rod to make us think that, oh, we can only see it with the rod. Only a special person is a Mason. Anybody can see a ley line. So they know where they are, they can find them, and then they co-opt them and control them. Ley lines naturally meander across the earth like capillaries. And they're the Earth's meridians. I mean, if you think about it, if we had all of these piezoelectric things on our bodies to force our meridians to go in particular directions that didn't follow the natural flow, we would get sick. And that is the point. They want her sick too.
And that's what
So,
they do to us with all the medications and stuff, isn't it?
yeah,
Forced vaccines, forced
yeah,
operations sometimes that definitely aren't necessary, cuts
yeah,
the
exactly. Yeah,
just cuts
yeah,
the energy. You know, it's very
yeah,
interesting talking about forced ley lines in the body. Let's think about plastic surgery and or any type of facial modification.
yeah,
Now, I have to say, I think that also goes with intent because if you're born with ears like that and the kids tease the living bejesus out of you, I think it's very kind that your parents will give you an operation to put your ears flat on your head. You know what I'm saying? Or if there's something really not that absolutely disadvantages you, then for sure go for it. But very interesting. One of my good friends, and she said to me the other day, a little while ago, we were talking, and she went for a consultation with a very well-known feng shui guy
mm,
here in South Africa. I mean, he's proper Japanese, but he lives here. And he was saying that when people who have had any type of facial Botox, anything like that, he says, I can't work with them. He said, because they've lost their soul.
Oh, far
He said,
out.
because when you're looking at the mirror, the person looking back at you is not actually the same person. So you
Yeah,
lose yourself.
yep,
And bit by bit, you lose yourself. And you're actually making place for this other entity, energy. And I don't want to go as far as saying that, right? That, but what he's saying, and it made a lot of sense to me, is that the more facial type surgeries you have for vanity, like, and not just facial, I mean, if you're going to go for 52 boob jobs and a bum lift and thigh sucking, what do they call that? Thigh sucking,
liposuction.
liposuction, you know, that type of thing. Obviously, it's saying you are so unhappy within yourself that you are
Yeah,
trying to force another way that you can learn to like yourself. You're trying to force yourself to look different. I mean, hey, I'm all for exercising and losing weight if you need to, and keeping yourself looking pretty if you want to do that, you know, but as long as you don't get attached to that. So
yes.
that to me is very interesting. It says because you can't work with something that's not there.
It's
So
just sad
the,
because you chose that face. That's what's so sad. I actually did have my ears pinned back, which is interesting. It's the only work I've ever had done. Apart from had some teeth pulled out, but I did that because they were one of the only things that were a trait that I got from my father, and I couldn't bear the resemblance. So I had them
I
pinned back.
think
But apart from that, I've done nothing.
it's funny that again I should talk about the ears, right?
Yeah, no, you just got it spot on. Um, and I'm not saying my face is perfect, far from it. It's actually quite asymmetrical, which is a sign of being from a very inbred family. But I chose this face, and I think I've had this face for many lifetimes, and I wouldn't change it for anything. And I wouldn't Botox
I
it,
think your
and I
face
don't
is
do
beautiful,
anything.
Rachel. Your face is beautiful. You are beautiful, and honestly, I wouldn't imagine. I mean, yesterday I was looking at pictures of Laura Sanchez. What's her name? The Bezos' girl. I
Oh,
mean, they
yeah.
showed a picture of her before the surgery and
Yeah.
now. She was so much cuter before
Right.
surgery. She looks like an alien doll now. I don't know. It's like
Is it
bizarre to
that
me. Why would you
transhuman
want to
thing?
do that?
It
Yeah,
must be a transhuman thing because it goes beyond, it's certainly not attractive. There's
yeah.
nothing attractive about it. I don't really be mean to the woman, but looks very odd.
Very, very interesting. Wow. So, guys and gals, just be yourself, man. Be your natural, beautiful, authentic self. And don't go for injections in your face. And oh, can you imagine doing that? I was so close to doing that once. All my friends are doing it, and I thought, and I couldn't, hey. I couldn't do it to go and have, but I just couldn't. I was like, no, I'm out of here. Okay, I'll be the granny. I'm grandma. I'll have my
Botulism is one of
lentils.
the most dangerous things on the planet. It's extremely dangerous. So, it's almost like a Russian roulette thing. I know a lot of people get it done and they don't seem to get ill from it, but I just wouldn't take the risk.
Maybe not immediately, but afterwards. I mean, you start seeing people afterwards, when when the Botox disappears or whatever it is. I mean, it's crazy. And it's so true because it does change the ley lines of your face. How can it not?
Yeah.
And if it changes the ley lines of your face, or meridians, let's call it meridians, call it for what it is, right? Of course, it's going to change the whole way your body works energetically. You're
Yeah.
not your natural self anymore.
Yeah. I mean, the most
I mean,
important thing is love yourself for what you are. I mean, good grief.
exactly, exactly. No, I agree that obviously, if there's something that is really, I mean, if you've got a wart or what, you know what I'm saying? Sure, by all means, do stuff like that. And if you're, in my opinion, but just be yourself. Love yourself for who you are. There's a reason you have this body. There's a reason you have this face. There's a reason. I mean, my nose as well. I mean, I always say I've got a large nose with purpose. Boy, does it smell out the bullshit. And it does. So I ain't changing this nose for anything. And people always comment about my hands, the size of my hands. Yes, I've got big hands for a woman, for sure. You should see my father's hands.
I didn't
But do
know
you know
that.
how many people these hands have healed? I mean, it's like people, I'll say, these hands brought one of my best friends back to life. Absolutely, I
Yeah.
did.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's like, why would you think, you know, that there's something wrong with that? It fits who I am. It fits my being. So you
And
just
this
gotta
is this is
love.
all by design because we're supposed to be obsessed with our outward appearance and not growing inside, not growing
Exactly.
psychically, not growing our spirit and soul and mapping things, doing important stuff, researching, learning. Instead, it's all about look how pretty I am, and it's just sad.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's totally that external. I mean, if every woman decided I'm happy with myself, within the 3 days the beauty industry would be crashing. I mean, the other day I was like looking at something, a gadget to do this quicker than that. I mean, the gimmicky gadgets that people are using and they're making money out of. It's
Yeah.
on another level. And it just creates more junk on our planet.
Oh,
It
exactly.
really
Yeah.
does. We really just have to go back to being natural.
Mm,
And
yeah.
then everything just happens naturally of itself, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Rachel, as always, it's so beautiful chatting to you. Do you have anything you'd like to just say in closing to our viewers? We will be putting your links and things in the description, but if there's anything you want to promote, tell us what you're doing, any shows you're doing.
Well, I have a course coming up in August. If anybody wants to join my course, they go to number6thscience.com. I'm also doing the Living Free Festival in August in the Pillar Valley, which will be beautiful. Lots of musicians there. It'll be lovely. Doing a similar presentation to what I shared today. And again, Cosmic Consciousness Conference, Tambourine Mountain in Queensland for December.
Yay, you're doing lots. You're busy girl, as you should
Busy
be.
girl.
It's beautiful. Okay, everybody, as always, wonderful time with the lovely Rachel Vaughan, and I look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks again. And in the
Yep.
meantime, stay cool, everybody. And yes, we will stay warm. God bless. Take care, everybody.